As Giancarlo Stanton's number one fan, boy, it feels good to watch him crush baseballs again. Welcome to Fantasy Baseball today on this Kokomo Friday, July 24th. Frank Stanfield alongside Scott White, Chris Towers, and Adam Azer. Guys, I tried to tell you about Stanton, but you just wouldn't listen.
Sorry, Frank. You were right, man.
Oh, he's not even that good. Oh, 2017 was the only season he's been good. Oh, his skills are diminishing. Oh, his strikeout rate's moving in the wrong direction. He's not a standout and batted balls anymore. Yeah. Giancarlo Stanton is the best hitter in fantasy baseball. Number one hitter in fantasy baseball currently.
I'm not sure who said some of those things that you just pretended to hear.
Pretty much direct quotes.
I don't think so.
I might
Look, you guys have been trying to run away from what you said all evening, and I will just say, first of all, we record every single one of these. Sure. I don't know if you guys know that.
Sure, there's what we said, and there's what you may have heard.
No,
what are you talking about?
There's only what you said.
You've never heard of Rashomon or whatever it's called? It's one of those situations.
All right, Giancarlo Stanton for real, though. 2 for 3, 2-run homer. How many times did A-Rod say that he looked lean in the broadcast? Oh, my gosh, that happened a million times.
I didn't really think he looked all that lean.
Yeah.
You know who looked lean?
Kind of looked like Giancarlo Stanton.
Who looked lean?
Who,
Luke
Scott?
freaking
Luke
Voigt. He looked like a different person. He looked like he shed a Luke Voigt and turned into Will Myers.
He looked like Luck Vaught.
Oh, man. The home run for Stanton, 459 feet, and he also had an RBI single. But, Chris, I'm about to rain on your Stanton parade. You know why? This is where you say why. Or not. Both of those came on fastballs. He still can't hit breaking pitches, Chris.
Oh, jeez.
This is see, like, that is a thing that you actually said, and you meant it.
All right, we'll see.
Like,
Look, how did Scherzer not have the scouting report not to throw fastballs to Giancarlo Stanton?
Just gonna tell you, I'm taking tomorrow off. I'm gonna go through the archives. I'm gonna dig up each and every one of the times that you guys said Giancarlo Stanton should retire.
Here's a couple things I know I said about Stanton. He's only once had a 40 homer season, which is factually true.
It'll be twice after this year.
And 2018, his production was his overall production, fantasy points per game, was quite a bit worse than the majority of his career. And then when he follows that up with a lost season, you really wonder where it leaves him. Was he on the decline? What's going on?
No, Scott, you really wonder it. You said Jorge Soler was better. Jorge Soler has no hits this season.
That is true. That is true. However,
stop.
Facts only.
I would still trade Stanton for Soler today.
We've talked enough about Stanton already today, and for the rest of time today on the show, we are reacting to opening night, of course. We're going to help you with your decisions for the long 11-day week. Plus, we will look at some 2-star pitchers for those who are setting their lineups on Monday again, which is, I would assume, most Roto leagues. The game is official. The Yankees won 4-1. They called it because of rain in the top of the 6th. Adam, you're here as well. Actually, I do have one last Stanton thing to do. Have you ever heard the call, John Sterling?
Oh, so bad.
The worst thing about Giancarlo Stanton.
Non si può stopparlo.
Apparently, in Italian means Giancarlo, you can't be stopped.
It's actually pretty cool.
Like, why not pick some words you can actually pronounce correctly?
Adam, your biggest takeaway from
just spitballing.
Yankees and Nationals.
Yeah, all right, so my biggest takeaway is a few things. Well, first of all, I just want to say it's great to have baseball back. I don't really care about the fans. It doesn't change the viewing experience for me. I think it's fine. I felt that way watching exhibition games over the weekend. I'm just glad to have baseball back. That's great. I also think it's funny that legitimately, and this is the truth, as a fantasy baseball analyst or whatever the heck I am, quasi-analyst, much more interested in Johnny Cueto versus Dustin May than Garrett Cole versus Max Scherzer. I mean, all of my fantasy baseball viewing is based on pitching matchups, and I care more about the guys that are relevant for your waiver wire. And we're watching this game right now, and we'll have a lot to say about May and Cueto. For the Yankees, you mentioned Luke Voigt. I just want to say that they seem to like Mike Ford quite a bit. I don't know that he stays on the roster that long. I don't know. Like, he's on the roster now that they have 30 guys. Voigt's a streaky guy. If he gets off to a slow start, it would be a little alarming, just because I think he might not play as regularly as I anticipated, because Ford has been hitting pretty well in summer camp and whatnot. So that's something to keep in mind. Aaron Hicks is not going to lead off. Typically, that's going to be DJ LeMahieu. Brett Gardner's not going to draft that fifth. I have really no concerns at all about Max Scherzer. Wild tonight. Bad pitch to Stanton. 11 strikeouts and 5 1/3. I don't really have any major takeaways, but I will say that the Nationals lineup is awful without Soto and Rendon right now. And if Victor Robles cannot move his way up this lineup, that's troubling. So he batted 9th tonight, but it's an opportunity for him to bat first. If he can just live up to his pedigree a little bit and start hitting, it's an opportunity for him to at least bat toward the top of the order. It's big for him. He's got to go out and do it.
Yeah, I agree. I thought it was quite sad that he's batting 9th. I guess they want that dual, back-to-back leadoff guy. But why don't they just do that at the top of the order then? Why don't they do Robles, Turner? I guess it would be weird if Eaton bats 3rd, but it's even weird when Starlin Castro's batting 3rd for your team anyway. So
I think honestly it makes more sense for Robles to bat like 5th or 6th than 1st, just looking at the on-base skills of him versus others in the lineup. And, obviously you want a high on-base percentage at the top. So I don't know. I don't think it's as I'm not as hopeful of that, I guess, as you guys are with Robles. So I wouldn't be counting on that.
I wouldn't say I'm hopeful. I just think the Soto injury, their lineup's terrible. So if he could become one of their better hitters, he can move up in the order. Now, if he bats 5th, that's probably not going to be good for his steals, but it's all speculation anyway. I guess I don't really have too many things to take away from 5 innings of baseball.
One thing I took away, and we got a report that this might be the case in the last week before the season. I'm not sure how much we talked about it, but Carter Kieboom wasn't in the lineup as Drupal Cabrera was at 3rd base instead. Seems like the two are going to split time. Carter Kieboom was, we frequently talked about him as being undervalued given his prospect pedigree and the role we thought he was going to have. I still think if he takes advantage of the opportunities he gets, then it's no contest and he becomes the starting 3rd baseman. Like you probably didn't draft him at a point where you have to play him. You probably only drafted him in larger leagues. I wouldn't be so quick to drop him. I would give it a little time to see how much he plays and to see how he performs when he does play, because it's still in this lineup, he could emerge as the best hitter, maybe not the best fantasy player, because that would obviously be Trey Turner, but the best pure hitter.
Adam, you mentioned Max Scherzer, kind of a mixed bag tonight. 5 1/3 innings pitched, 4 earned runs, 4 walks, quite wild. 11 strikeouts, 16 of the outs. 11 of the 16 outs that he recorded were via strikeout with 22 swinging strikes. The Yankees are going to swing and miss quite a bit. Garrett Cole, 5 innings pitched, 1 hit, 1 earned run. That was to Adam Eaton. He allowed a solo homer, 5 strikeouts with 11 swinging strikes. Chris, DJ LeMahieu was active on the roster, but was not in the starting lineup tonight. Kind of curious.
He hadn't played at all before this, right?
He played in the summer
Monday,
camp game. Yeah.
He'll be back. He'll be back soon.
Yeah, that would be my expectation, that it's just a situation where he's, not quite all there, needs to get up to speed a little bit more. Off day today, they're off tomorrow. Off day today for him, off tomorrow. I would expect we see him back in the lineup on Saturday.
Some news and notes. On a day when baseball returned, we lost one of the bright young stars. Juan Soto has tested positive for COVID. We talked about that on yesterday's show. And then Clayton Kershaw, about 4 hours before first pitch for the Dodgers game, maybe even 5 hours, whatever it was, middle of the day, placed on the 10-day IL, retroactive to July 20th with back stiffness. Apparently he suffered the injury in the weight room, and this is not great because he has suffered injuries to his back before. Dave Roberts did not provide a timetable for Kershaw's return, but he will miss at least 2 turns through the rotation, given the minimum requirement for the IL stint. Dustin May.
I saw a different report on that with Roberts. He seemed to suggest he could be back for the Diamondback series, which is the end of next week. I think it. Roberts doesn't sound really concerned at all. They just interviewed him in the game. So
isn't that 2 turns though?
What would make
technically
2 turns? Yeah, it would technically be 2 turns because
he was the opening day start.
Yeah, and then the Thursday game.
So what I think is going to happen is they called up Dustin May for this start. the fifth day would be Walker Buehler's first start, which we expected May to piggyback with Buehler anyway. So May sticks around to piggyback with Buehler. And then the next time through, Kershaw would take that opening. And there's an off day in there that allows that to work out. So I suspect we'll see Kershaw back next Saturday. So if you're playing an 11-game week, you might still want to start him. Depends what 2 start options you'd be passing up there. I think I feel pretty comfortable recommending that. And as for Dustin May, who's in the 5th inning now and looking really good. I mean, he looked good down the stretch last year too. But
looks unbelievably good.
Yeah, I'm not sure that they choose now to carve out a rotation opening for him when they have 5 options that they were already more comfortable with. But maybe he sticks around as like a bulk guy out of the bullpen.
Yeah,
Frank, I just want to point out with May, because this is tough to do because we're recording in the middle of the start and everybody's going to hear it when the game is over. He's given up 1 run through 4 innings. He throws like 100 miles per hour. His cutter is ridiculous, and it looks like it's like 94 miles per hour. But he made 4 starts last year and really had trouble in the 6th inning a couple times. He also had an outing where he came in the 6th inning and got roughed up. So like if you look at his 6th inning ERA, it's terrible. But his ERA last year, 3rd time through the order, was over 20, and opponents batted over 500. Okay. So let's see if he can navigate 3rd time through the order. He's also facing arguably the worst lineup in the National League. But I certainly looked at every league I was in to see if Dustin May was available. He wasn't. He's 50% owned.
I gotta think that was a tiny sample size 3rd time through.
Yeah, I would guess that's like less than 20 plate appearances, right?
But he is curious in a couple ways, because like throws really hard, tons of movement on his pitches. As hard as they are, he gets a ton of movement on them. Yeah, it was ranked high in every prospect rank list because the talent is obvious, but it's basically just sinker cutter. There's not a lot of change of speed there. And so as good as his stuff is, he doesn't have a great strikeout rate in the minors. He gets a lot of weak contact, a great ground ball pitcher, and it led to big numbers. Obviously, coming up the ladder, it led to big numbers in his stint in the majors last year. But is he ever going to develop that swing and miss arsenal that would allow him to be a true stud in fantasy, or is he going to be just good? I have no doubt he'll be good. It's just the degree of good that Dustin May will be, and when does he get that opportunity to really become a fixture for fantasy players?
Yeah, unfortunately, there's a new tracking system that they're using for Stackcast, and the numbers in game are all wonky. I think it looks like the Yankees and Nationals stuff is correct now. Helps that there were only 2 pitchers in that game. You guys said there would be no complete games in 2020. Well, look at that, 2 in the very first game. So it's not quite clear. Like he's thrown, it looks like 9 or 10 pitches, 90 miles per hour below, which is definitely not his cutter the way it's moving tonight. And it's definitely not his fastball. So question is he throwing his changeup more? Last year, he barely threw it, or is it his curveball? And it looks like at least a couple of them are probably changeups.
And this is Dustin May you're talking about, Chris?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, what I'm looking at is he's thrown 56 pitches and 40 of them are sinkers and 10 of them are cutters. So, and that's basically who he was last year too. So temper expectations. Yes, he throws very hard. The cutter is awesome, but this is basically who he was last year too. He was 57% fastball, 31% cutter. Really needs to kind of develop that curveball, or at least use it more to, I think, kind of reach his potential.
Well, Frank, I'll ask you. If you had like Griffin Canning or one of these like late rise, Garrett Richards, would you drop them for Dustin May?
I wouldn't, because I don't think he's going to be in the rotation long term. I think I do trust that Kershaw will actually be back rather quickly. And then, maybe they find a way to keep him in the rotation. I mean, maybe if he's outperforming Ross Stripling or Alex Wood or something like that, but I just don't think that's going to happen. I think this is probably another year where Dustin May is mostly in long relief. Anything can happen though.
Yeah, I mean, to quote Dr. Ian Malcolm, life finds a way. When it comes to pitchers, if we talk about there's not a spot in the rotation, there will be a spot in the rotation eventually, probably not in the too distant future. That's the way pitching works. And so, as we found out 5 hours before opening pitch today with Clayton Kershaw. So for me, it's more just like I haven't really taken Dustin May seriously as like one of the high upside young pitchers this year. And it's because his minor league production has never matched what the profile suggests it should be. Like you're talking about a mid 3s ERA, 3.50 for his minor league career, less than a strikeout per inning. Like he might be a guy that just figures it out when he gets to the majors.
Punch out right there. You see a little curveball. I think it was a slider actually. A little punch out with the breaking ball.
I'm watching him, but then I'm watching him pitch tonight, and I'm like, "Holy crap! This is like, are we sure he's not the Dodgers' best pitcher?"
Yeah, I mean, he needs a third pitch.
Sometimes the production does not match, the eye test.
Yeah,
it's like Jordan
so they're taking him out now after 4 1/3. He gave up 7 hits to the Giants in 4 1/3.
Like that's not impressive, guys. As much as we're hyping him up,
and
drop him,
to be
53% owned. Come on now.
What about Cueto? Let's talk about Cueto.
Adam said that might be the worst lineup in the National League. I'm not sure that would have been the best lineup in the PCL last year. The one that the Giants are throwing out there right now.
Yeah, what can you tell me about Joe McCarthy, starting right fielder for the San Francisco Giants?
He's got a list of names right here.
I heard that they've had a new left fielder like 13 years in a row, opening day left fielder.
Well, this is a new old left fielder though, right? Wasn't it Hunter Pence today?
Well, Alex Dickerson's playing left today.
Alex Dickerson.
And I think one of them was Dave Roberts. They were talking about on the broadcast. You mentioned Johnny Cueto, Adam, and 4 innings pitched so far, 5 hits, 1 earned run, 1 walk, 3 strikeouts. It's just a delight to have Johnny Cueto back. I mean, his quick pitching, his stuttering. Look, if he delivers a quality start against the Dodgers, I'm not going to overreact. But I said this yesterday, Scott. I think if he performs well, he should be on your radar after a start like this against a lineup like the Dodgers.
Yeah, I agree. And I thought it was crazy talking yesterday that anybody would consider starting him in this first start back after a long layoff, a bad injury against the Dodgers. And so far, so good. Obviously, he has a track record of success, and everybody could use an extra pitcher. So if he finishes the start strong in this matchup, then yeah, he's absolutely back on the mixed league radar.
Yeah, his schedule is going to get pretty awful. Like it's Dodgers now, and then it's the Padres, which is fine. Then the Rangers, and then I think it's going to be. Oh no, he's missing Colorado. Okay, so that's good. He's missing the Rockies, but it's at the Dodgers, then at Houston. But he's owned in fewer leagues than Dustin May. Cueto's 43% owned. The strikeouts are almost certainly not going to be that good, and the wins probably aren't going to be that good either. So he's got to basically pitch like to the best of his abilities to be, I think, mixed league relevant. I'm not really that interested.
Would it really surprise anybody if he performed like a Kyle Hendricks? 7-8 Ks per 9, solid ratios.
I mean, Johnny Cueto is a guy who, for a long time, a lot of people would say, well, he's a regression candidate this year. He can't put up a BABIP that low. And he's been pretty consistently that kind of guy. He's never had much differentiation between the velocity of his pitches, which, makes him pretty hard to pick up when he throws 5 different ones. And he's actually throwing a little harder than I expected to today. Again, this Stackcast seems to be having a couple of issues, and it seems like they've kind of classified some of his fastballs as sliders and some of his sliders as fastballs, but pretty much everything with the fastball has been 90 miles an hour or up, with several in the 93 range. His last start in summer camp, I saw a reporter was talking about he was throwing more like 88, 89. So Johnny Cueto is actually not that far off from, where he was when he was pretty good.
Adam, do you want to weigh in on Juan Soto at all? Because we talked about it yesterday and you weren't on. I don't know that there's anything to add, but
I thought it was really interesting in our podcast for the People League. Someone said, I actually don't know which league it was. It was one of our 2 podcast leagues. Someone said, would it be an insult if I offer Ramon Laureano for Juan Soto? And I don't think it is. I mean, I wouldn't take that, but
the offer would be to Frank in this particular league.
Yes, Frank has Juan Soto.
And I like Ramon Laureano. I like Ramon Laureano,
look,
but I wouldn't take
what
the
you
deal.
can get. I don't know.
I wouldn't take it.
No.
I mean, it basically comes down to like, if Juan Soto misses 2.5 weeks, that's a quarter of the season.
Yeah,
and
sure.
he was someone in a points league we're probably expecting right around 4 points per game from. That would kind of mean if you could get someone who averages 3.2 points per game, that's probably a net win.
I understand that's how the math works out, but in a 3 outfielder league like a points league, I mean, there's a good chance you have somebody like that already on the bench or already on the waiver wire.
Right.
Like if you're comfortable, there's no reason to sell low on Soto if you have an adequate if all you're aiming for is adequacy, you probably can find that in a 3 outfielder league.
But
It's
it
more
might be half the
likely.
season.
It's more likely you'll do it in a roto league, I think, because 5 outfielders. I mean, the replacement value there is a little bit tougher to come by. So
And he's better in points than Roto.
it's true.
Yeah, but also like he had basically didn't have much of a summer camp, so I didn't know that he was, because he was like late to report, right?
Yeah.
And now he's got COVID, so it's hard to know what to expect from him when he comes back. He could get off to a slow start, but this is the most important question of the night, Frank. You have him in the For the People League. It's a 16-team league with 3 outfielders. Somebody offers you Giancarlo Stanton for Juan Soto. And that's, I mean, I think that is a legitimate trade offer.
That's
and
fair.
a tough call.
That's
Yeah,
fair.
What would you do?
I would probably take it.
I probably would too.
You probably have Laureano ranked higher, though.
I think in Roto I did. In points, I had Stanton higher.
But listen, do you guys also think like, well, Ron Laureano or Giancarlo Stanton, they could get COVID tomorrow. So it's like, I don't know how to approach this whole situation. Do you?
Well,
They could.
the number of players who have gotten it relative to the entire player pool is very low. So I don't think you should go around. I don't think you should play it that way.
Yeah,
yes, it's of course possible anyone could get it, but it just seems self-defeating to approach
It's also
it that way.
it's also possible that Juan Soto and Giancarlo Stanton both end up having it. And stay with me now, Giancarlo Stanton recovers quicker. So like there's just this whole
I know,
thing
it's crazy.
is
Yeah.
it's just we're dealing with total unknowns. We're not even dealing with like we're dealing with unknown unknowns. Like we don't know what we don't know when it comes to this kind of thing. It just isn't anything like what we're used to dealing with. It could be 2 weeks and Juan Soto's back in the lineup. It could be a month. He could miss the whole season. Like every single one of those things is in play in a way that wouldn't be true if he rolled his ankle or pulled his hamstring.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say, too, just to answer Adam's question. Yeah, I'm not going to compare the severity of COVID because obviously, it could wind up being very severe for different people. But I think the chance of someone catching it is probably just as likely as someone getting hurt randomly on the field.
Yeah.
So it's just, look, these things are going to happen, and it's just really unfortunate that it happened to Juan Soto, who was one of the best young players, a first, second round pick for fantasy on the day of opening day. So it sucks.
Oh, it sucked. Yeah, it was tough. Yeah. And so it's sad for him, and I'm happy that he's asymptomatic.
MLB officially announced that an expanded postseason format will take place for the 2020 season this season. So more than half the teams in baseball, there are 30 teams in baseball, 16 of those will be in the postseason this year. So
This matters.
It doesn't affect fantasy.
It does.
Oh, I
It
guess
does, I think.
Yeah,
I think
It makes a
Yeah.
team like the Blue Jays even more willing to put in a Nate Pearson and stick with him.
Right.
It's gonna create more contending teams. It's going to create, these situations where you think like the Pirates are going to trade Keone Kela. Well, what if the Pirates pitching staff actually is good and they're hanging around 500 come end of August? They might not trade those guys.
They still
And
should trade him.
so they probably should. There's no actual benefit to making the playoffs in terms of the monetary aspect, which we know is the only thing that truly matters. But yeah, it's going to create more opportunities for teams to go for it. And it is always good when teams are actively trying to win. That is good for fantasy because that means they're going to be incentivized to put their best players on the field, hopefully.
And there was one player last year that basically quit, and that was Whit Merrifield, who just decided he didn't want to run anymore because the Royals were so bad. So the longer they can hang around and just be within shouting distance of being the 8th best team. I know that they're probably not going to be, but it's not in a month. In 30 games, they could be. Yeah,
but
so that helps.
You also look at someone like Nick Madrigal. Like the White Sox were kind of fringe playoff contenders in a 5-team playoff. All of a sudden, this could be a team that really is going for it, and that could mean that Nick Madrigal's up in 6 days.
Yeah, I think all but 7 teams have a legitimate shot at making the playoffs now. And those 7, like I would include the Royals in the 7, but like you said, Adam, they could think they have a shot until pretty late. And so, it's almost like every team is in it now, especially given how short the schedule is. It's going to take, I'm not sure we're going to have enough time for some team to be so clearly out of it. Maybe like the Tigers or Orioles or something. I guess it's possible.
Oh yeah.
But all I can think of,
it's possible that they are at least within shouting distance.
All I can think of when you refer to them as the 7 is like bathe in the light of the 7 or whatever it's called.
I saw someone else was speculating, was going down this same path of thought, not bathe in the light of 7, but he included the Rockies as an 8th team. And that's just that's sad for Rockies fans because the 7 are all rebuilding. The Rockies are not.
Well, see, but did you see the Rockies had their analytics guys put together some numbers, and the last time they won 73 games, they won 92 the next year. So
they must have the same analytics guys as Dave Gettleman, the GM of the New York Giants.
That's a real thing their owner or team president said.
All right, the last news item I want to hit on, Scott, you can address this one. You're still wearing the Braves jersey from yesterday, so I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Kyle Wright is scheduled to start Tuesday's game against the Rays. Former first-round pick last year in AAA, a 4.17 ERA, a 1.26 WHIP for Kyle Wright. This is one of the pitchers for the Braves that I could see them not letting go very deep into the game. Scott.
Yeah, I agree. The plan wasn't for him to be in the rotation, and early on in summer camp, they were kind of treating him like a non-option for the rotation because he didn't have as much chance to build up during the shutdown. So, he had a bad start against the Marlins last time in summer camp, and I think there's potential here. He finished the AAA season strong last year. Obviously, was the 5th overall pick a couple years ago, but he really has to show something before I consider him a potential pickup in fantasy. And as you said, I'm not really counting on that happening early in the year.
I'll quickly update you guys on what's going on in this game. Johnny Cueto is out after 4 innings pitched, 63 pitches. So this is probably what we're going to see a lot of the first, couple of weeks, first couple of times through the rotation. Drew Smyly is in. Johnny Cueto is out.
Drew Smiley's throwing like 94 miles per hour.
Don't sleep on Drew Smyly, man.
Drew Smiley's on. He's someone I've always been interested in, and he's throwing 94 miles an hour and may get to be a starter with half his games in. I almost called it Pac Bell. It's late at night, guys. I'm gonna keep an eye on Drew Smyly as Mookie Betts beats out an infield single to start a 5-run rally.
Give up move getting Cueto out of the game. That is ridiculous. 4 innings.
I thought Smyly was in the rotation.
It could be just an off day thing where they don't need a 5th starter for X number of days.
I thought he was the 4th starter though.
They might not need a 4th starter.
That is what Roster Resource has him as, the 4th starter. So we shall see what happens. They have Jeff Samardzija 2nd and Kevin Gausman 3rd. Let's see what happens with the San Francisco Giants. The pitching planner. We spoke about the 4-day week for the weekend on yesterday's podcast. So today we want to hit the 11-day week if you're playing that extended week in a head-to-head league. We are also going to touch on some of those 2-star pitchers if you set your lineup on Monday. Sleepers for the 11-day week. This list doesn't really change much from any of the guys we mentioned earlier. Scott, you have Alex Wood and Ross Stripling. They're going up against the Giants and the Diamondbacks. Corbin Burns against the Cubs and the Cardinals. Adrian Hauser, who we mentioned was really great in his final summer camp start. He is at the Pirates and against the Cardinals. And then Matt Shoemaker against Tampa Bay Rays and the Nationals. The Nationals are quickly going to become one of the teams you want to stream your pitcher against because without Juan Soto, that lineup is dreadful. Nate Eovaldi against the Orioles and the Marlins. Those are two primetime starts. And then Velasquez against the Marlins and the Toronto Blue Jays. Scott, who are you looking at for 2-star pitchers if people are setting their lineups on Monday?
So it's a bad list of 2-star pitchers for week 2 if your week 1 was very short. It makes sense. I mean, obviously, teams are opening weekend here. They're probably stacking up their best pitchers, and so you're looking at the back end of most rotations for the start of next week. So, I mean, the only studs that are making 2 starts next week are Garrett Cole, Tyler Glasnow, Walker Buehler. Usually we get as many as a dozen studs starting in a given week. And Buehler, we talked about how he's probably going to be limited his first turn, if not his first 2. And yet he's third in my 2-start pitcher rankings that are going up on the site, because given the dearth of 2-start options, I don't know how you don't start him. Josh James, Adrian Hauser, they are both supposedly available in a lot of fantasy leagues. I have them 4th and 5th. James has a matchup against Seattle. Hauser has a matchup against Pittsburgh. So those are I see them as pretty much must starts, given the lack of 2-start pitchers next week. I don't know if every week I'd call them must start 2-start pitchers. It depends how they perform here at the start of the year. But for this upcoming week, I'd consider them must starts. I have J-Hap, Luke Weaver, kind of on the fence about Mike Fultonevich because he was so bad with his velocity down in that last summer camp start. Again, there's so few 2-start options that if you made the investment in Fultonevich on draft day, I'm not sure how many people are saying, okay, I'm going to sit him when I have so few 2-start options, but it's risky there at Tampa Bay and versus the Mets. Some sleepers, if you're looking to go that route, Dylan Cease, Griffin Canning, and Aaron Savale
My man.
are all probably pretty well owned. They might be available in your league.
Look, I'm surprised, Scott. Cease is 43%, Canning is 47%. And I think that even if you don't want to start them, it is worth stashing them if you can. I mean, obviously you have to make some tough decisions about who to drop, but a lot of fantasy managers are able to move players into their IR spots right now from their drafts where they weren't able to do that. And if you have an open roster spot, Canning and Cease are like popping out to me, Scott, right now. Like they would be on my team immediately.
Yeah, no, I just don't trust the ownership percentages right now because a lot of things don't make sense with that data. And you wonder how many leagues were abandoned in March and what kind of impact that's having. So yes.
Oh, I hope that's not true.
Yes, I hear what you're saying. I'm just not sure how much I believe it, because did we have a single draft where Dylan Cease went undrafted? No. One of his matchups is at Kansas City. So that's
so?
Not lately, but
I don't think we had a single
I don't know.
one.
I don't think he'd be owned in a 10-team league.
I would say 2 or 3 weeks ago, he wasn't necessarily getting drafted everywhere.
And Griffin Canning certainly wasn't.
Griffin Canning was not getting
Savale
drafted.
wasn't, but I'm pretty sure Cease was. Anyway, some that I'm more confident will be more widely available. Chris Bassett, one of his 2 matchups is at Seattle. He took Jesus Luzardo's spot in the Athletics rotation, and his ratios were actually pretty good last year, though he had some short starts. And then Anthony Desclafani, one of his 2 matchups is at Detroit. This is getting a little more desperate. These are the kind of pickups I'd only consider like in a points league, because the threshold for failure is lower or higher. There's less disaster potential for pitchers in points league because you don't have to guard the ratio stats. So Anibal Sanchez, one of his matchups is at Miami. Kyle Gibson, one is at San Francisco. Austin Voth, who won the 5th starter job for the Nationals, one of his starts is at Miami. And Pablo Lopez, yes, one of his starts is Baltimore, and the other is Washington. Yeah.
Okay, I'm on board. At first, when you said Pablo Lopez I was like, what is he talking about? Pablo Lopez kind of the forgotten man, because he was hyped up last year in spring training and obviously was not great in 2019. But Baltimore and the Nationals, sign me up. I can get behind that. He's only 15% owned on CBS.
He was averaging like 94 miles per hour with his fastball at the last start of camp against the Braves, and he's got a new cutter, and I think a new changeup. His curveball's always been a pretty good pitch. So, yeah, I mean, look, he's a stallion.
It's a lot of changes. He is a stallion.
He's a stallion. He had stretches last year where he was pretty good, especially early on in the year. He really had like 1 or 2 disastrous starts that really inflated his ERA.
I started him for this game. 3 innings pitched.
Yep.
10 hits, 10 earned runs.
Yep. No,
2
he had.
walks,
But
3
if you take
strikeouts.
that one, if you take that one out, he had like a 3.4 ERA through his first 14 starts. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, these are Azer stats. I've heard about this in fantasy
I'm
football
just
on
pointing
fantasy football
out
today.
A fact.
No, I remember Pablo Lopez being pretty popular on our show. He was always like, should we add him? Should we drop him? Should we add him? He was always
3.13 3.13 ERA through his first 14 starts. If you take out that one against the Mets,
That's pretty good.
I mean,
Reliable.
look,
The one thing that I'm wondering, Scott, is yesterday I mentioned DeSclafani was placed on the 10-day IL. So I think that moves Wade Miley up. And I think Miley is going to have a double start against the Cubs and the Tigers.
They both are in line to make 2 starts.
Okay.
No question, Scott on the 2-star pitch. He's got everything covered.
Wade Miley, any interest? I mean, he's facing the Tigers.
I am wrong sometimes. And I'll have to look into this. I'll have to look into this injury for DeSclafani more because I don't know. Have they given a timetable for him returning? I may have presumed too much there. I'm not as interested in Miley. I don't think Miley's very good. He does have a matchup against the Tigers. For that matter, Eliezer Hernandez, who has shown some potential for the Marlins in the past. He has those same good matchups that Pablo Lopez does. I can't go all the way to recommending them, especially this first time through. And there's so much, every new season there's so much mystery attached to every player. You're getting into Scrubsville here. I'm not saying they'll never be useful, but I think everybody has to have a full allotment of pitchers at this point that are more attractive than them.
these are mostly just guys to watch. I want to say a name. I don't know if he makes 2 starts this week, but I am much more interested in Tyler Mahle than I am in Wade Miley. He had a 399 FIP or xFIP last season. He got really unlucky with the home runs, and that's been a thing that's happened in his brief major league career, but he's actually got pretty good stuff, great control. There is room for a Tyler Mahle breakout, and it's very confusing that him and Wade Miley are being talked about in the same sentence because it kind of sounds like you're just saying one of them with an accent and the other not. Also, Dylan Cease is 20% rostered in Yahoo leagues, so just throwing that.
But I think Yahoo's like more 10-teamers than CBS. But
yeah,
But yeah, he's not going to get drafted in 10-team leagues for the most part. By the way, I think DeSclafani expects to only miss 1 start.
Okay, so that makes sense. Tyler Mahle, I can kind of get behind.
That might not make him a 2-star pitcher, though. So I'm actually going to remove Anthony DeSclafani from the 2-star pitcher rankings. So I would not advise picking him up.
I would say of the names that we've.
It could be wrong, I know, but I'd rather not call somebody a 2-star pitcher and then them not be a 2-star pitcher. I'd rather err on the side of caution with that.
Look, I don't want to be the reason that Scott changes his 2-star pitcher rankings or article, and then it all comes back to me, and he's like, Frank, you suck, you messed it up.
To be honest, I didn't even know DeSclafani went on the IL, so I clearly wasn't listening to you yesterday. I'm glad you pointed it out.
Well, thanks, Scott. Before we get to the hitting planner, I do have to ask you guys a question. Did you see Dr. Anthony Fauci's first pitch?
Not great.
Yeah.
Can we just there's nobody in the crowd. Can we just get rid of all of the pregame ceremonies? This is it feels like even more weird.
I thought that was a nice touch. I thought you're in Washington. It's the beginning of sports. Good sports.
But having a video with Morgan Freeman, it just the whole thing just feels even more weird and out of place. Like when they're doing the everybody clap your hands and there's nobody in the crowd. The whole thing is very odd. Can we just dispense with the pageantry and just play a game of baseball?
I just imagine them creating like the cardboard cutouts, but like with cardboard hands that like clap together.
See, I would be down for that. Like, let's get weird with it. If you're gonna get weird with it, put robots in the crowd and have them react. Yeah, I'm down with that.
Adam, do you think you could throw a better first pitch than Dr. Fauci?
Yeah, I do. I was rooting for him. That was a little unfortunate. That was almost like that cover we heard of About a Girl that I've been laughing about for 2 days straight. Yeah, I do. My brother threw out the first pitch at a Marlins game 5 years ago, something like that, and he nailed it. He was awesome.
Nice.
Was he standing on the mound like Dr. Fauci? I don't know why they had this 80-year-old standing on the mound. That seemed like it was destined to fail.
You know, everybody thinks it's easy. Yeah. And then you get up in front of all those people and the nerves get the better of you.
All those cardboard cutouts.
I would say like 95% of American men believe they can throw a good first pitch, and most of them are wrong.
I don't think I could, but I do think I could do better than Fauci.
I could. I'm not going to say
Frank
would.
Could.
I will.
That one opportunity.
Yeah, it's that one toss. Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to be a strike. I mean, I'll get it somewhere in the vicinity.
I have trouble asking the waiter for extra salsa. I'm not sure I can manage the pressure of throwing out a first pitch.
Chris, did you say salsa?
Yeah, it's like
say salsa, Chris.
Salsa.
It sounded like you said salsa, like rhymes with
Where
Tulsa.
Where are you? Where you're ordering extra salsa?
Any like a Chevy's.
Do you have to pay for it?
On the border.
Are you willing to pay for it, or do you expect it to be complimentary?
Well, yeah, it's complimentary, but that's why it's kind of awkward to ask for more.
I gotcha.
I didn't understand.
I wasn't quite making the connection there.
I'm just saying I'm an incredibly awkward person. And so I'm not going to guarantee that I can step on a mound with Mike Yastrzemski standing behind a home plate waiting for me to throw one in and guarantee I'm not going to bounce it. There's a pretty good chance I'm going to mess that up.
Yeah,
I'll probably trip on the way to the mound, honestly.
Quickly promote a few things. If you're a fan of the podcast, we're not asking you to tell the world. But if you could just tell one friend about the podcast and why you like it, we would greatly appreciate that. And while you're at it, we would appreciate a 5-star Apple Podcast review. Drop a question in there, and we will answer it on a future podcast. We'll take a quick break here. When we get back, we're looking at the hitting planner. We're back here on Fantasy Baseball today, looking at the schedule for the 11-day week, again, for hitters. And then I'm also going to reveal some of the teams that only play 5 games if your lineup resets on Monday. But let's look at the scheduling for the 11-day week. Most teams play 10 games, but these 6 play 9 games. The Pirates, the A's, the White Sox, the Brewers, the Astros, and the Twins. Most of those lineups are great ones. You'll start those players. And then you have Josh Bell, who you're starting, and then Brian Reynolds, too. If you play in a 5-outfielder league, you're probably starting him in a 3-outfielder league. Maybe you have somebody better. These 3 teams only play 8 games in the 11-day week. The Cardinals, the Rangers, and the Rockies. The Rockies, only 3 of those games are in Coors Field, and they are against the Padres. I have these as like the fringe players on those teams that play 8 games. Colton Wong, Matt Carpenter, Paul DeJong, Tommy Edman, Shin-Soo Choo, Willie Calhoun, Danny Santana, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, David Dahl, Garrett Hampson, Sam Hilliard, Daniel Murphy. Does anyone stand out there?
I sat David Dahl for Aaron Hicks. Hicks had two more games.
Yeah.
And Dahl was really bad on the road last year. And 3 of his 8 games are at home. So I love David Dahl. I really wanted to get him in a lot of my drafts, but I'm not super into him. Where less than half of his games are on the road or are at home, and he's already down games compared to everybody else. So I think, Hampson, if you want this, I don't know about the steals, but
how many games is Hampson going to start in an 8-game week? 4?
Yeah, I mean,
I thought he'd be
more than that, but we don't really know.
That's going to be a big one to watch, his playing time. But I think
they've got Rogers up too.
Hampson, like if it's a full roto league with all those lineup spots to fill, and he's one of your primary steal sources, you probably just start him. And in any other scenario, you probably sit him, at least until we see how much he's playing.
I'm probably the biggest Willie Calhoun fan, and even I would bench him too because 8 games, he's coming off the hip injury. I think he appeared in a summer camp game on Wednesday, and I think he went 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts. So I've got to see a little bit more from Willie Calhoun. I'm most likely benching him if I have someone that I can start instead. Scott, some of the sleepers that you have for the 11-day week, some of the Mets that you like. J.D. Davis, of course. Yoenis Cespedes, Ahmed Rosario. They have 6 games against the Braves, and they have 4 against the Red Sox. Scott, would you start someone like J.D. Davis and Cespedes over David Dahl? Would you... 10 games versus the 8, only 3 in Coors Field for Dahl?
I mean, I would J.D. Davis. I think J.D. Davis is must start. It's one of those situations where I don't quite believe the ownership percentage that's showing up right now, but I can't ignore it and leave him off this list. So, yeah, I mean, him over David Dahl, that might be something I'd do anyway, regardless of matchups. But Cespedes over Dahl, like, I have enough questions about Cespedes and how back to 100% is he really after 3 leg surgeries, and how much is he going to play since Dominic Smith had a huge camp. I have enough questions there that I'd probably stick with Dahl even with the bad matchups, but it would at least give me pause. One player I really like this week, the Padres have, in my mind, the best matchups of any team for the extra long week 1. That's what we're talking about here. We haven't jumped to week 2 yet. Padres get that series at Colorado, and they face the Giants rotation 3 times. So I like Will Myers a lot. I might consider him over Dahl. I like Trent Grisham a lot, though he's unproven, and so that would probably be more of a deeper league situation. Adam Eaton, it's too late to start him, I guess, but he was on this list and he has homered already, and they played the Seinfeld theme as he trotted around the bases, which I thought was a nice touch. I hadn't really heard that application for the Seinfeld theme before, but it worked, I think.
Great call, Scott, by the way. I mean, hey, you touted Adam Eaton, home run off of Garrett Cole. Little pat on the back there, Scott.
I wasn't necessarily putting him on this list for his matchups against the Yankees.
Right.
More the Blue Jays and Marlins later in the week, but we're off to a good start.
Yeah, I don't think he's coming out against lefties, by the way. They need him in the lineup.
Did you listen to Thursday's podcast, Adam? Because I said exactly that. When we got the Juan Soto news, I said, Adam, if you're listening, pretty sure Adam Eaton's going to play every day now. They don't have a choice, really. A few other names here. Alex Verdugo, we spoke about as well yesterday. He gets the Orioles. He gets 4 games against the Mets. And really, like, outside of DeGrom, the Mets rotation is kind of a mess, in my opinion. And then he gets 3 against the Yankees. And Shogo Akiyama, he plays 10 games. 6 are against Detroit. 4 are against the Cubs. Both pitching staffs, in my opinion, stink. Hendricks is okay. Darvish is fine.
Yeah,
How many
lefties?
lefties? How many lefties?
So he might get Boyd twice, and the Cubs have Lester.
Start him.
That's going to be the determining factor for him, I would think, is whether they're facing lefties.
I think it's because the Phillip Ervin is really the only platoon option there, right? Since they sent Aristides Aquino down.
Mm-hmm.
And they also have Jesse Winker, who you would think would platoon. So I'm not so sure Akiyama won't play every day, actually. Certainly if he performs. I mean, they got him to be a table setter, not best, but terrific track record in Japan. Right now, roster resources showing him as not being in a platoon. So I'm not so sure it's going to be a strict lefty-righty thing with him.
Yeah, 7 of those games are in Great American Ballpark as well. What I'm looking at is he will definitely face Lester midweek, and he will definitely face Matt Boyd, obviously, on opening day. He will not get Matt Boyd for Boyd's second start. Boyd will face the Royals instead. So he'll face at least 2 lefties that I can see as of now. I do like it, though. I like Akiyama for...
Shogo Akiyama is somebody who I could see his ownership surging here early in the season once people realize how much he's playing, how good the Reds lineup is, how much he's getting on base. Obviously, it's contingent on him actually doing that, but I could see that absolutely happening with him.
For lineups that are set on Monday, there are 19 teams that have 7 games next week, so you really are going to need that volume, especially if you play in a points league. But again, those 3 teams that I mentioned that only play 8 games in the 11-day week, they also only play 5 games for the start of week 2 if you're week resets, and those are the Cardinals, the Rangers, the Rockies. Scott, I would say that if your week resets on Monday, that I think Trevor Story and Nolan Arenado, out of all those teams all those players on those teams, are the only must-start players. I would consider Gallo and Goldschmidt even on the fringe, with as many teams that have 7 games compared to these that only have 5.
Blackman?
I think he's closer to Gallo and Goldschmidt.
2 of the 5 are on the road, right?
Yes.
And they've got the 3 at home.
Yeah,
I think
that's right. 3 at home for the Rockies, 3 of the 5.
I would say in a roto league, you're starting Charlie Blackman.
Yeah, no, I think Blackman, I think Arenado, I think Trevor Story are obvious for the Rangers. I would say Gallo is an obvious start. The Cardinals have just 5 games too, right? Did you mention them?
Yeah.
Yes. I mentioned Goldschmidt as someone who might be on the fringe.
But the thing is, like, the others, you could consider sitting them. Would I go so far as to burn a roster spot picking someone else up to start over them? Probably not. I'd probably just say, okay, this might not be their strongest week. But, sometimes they surprise you in those 5-game weeks.
Yeah, I mean,
that's
that's
a
the thing
2-homer
is-
game or something, and it's like, all right, it was worth it.
Yeah, if Charlie Blackman has a 5-hit game, boom, he was worth starting.
Yeah,
Which-
I just want to add, it is the first week of the season. Guys are going to sit. So someone who has a 7-game week might only have a 5 or a 6-game week. On the other hand, someone who has a 5-game week might only have a 4-game week.
Yeah.
Although you think they're probably less likely to sit those particular instances because they have the built-in days off. But I wouldn't plan. It's like it happens with a doubleheader. You go, oh, this guy's got 8 games. Well, they usually don't play both games of a doubleheader. They're not gonna play 8 games in 7 days. So if you go with a guy who's not a very good hitter because you think he's got 7 games, there's a good chance it's not going to happen. He might not even play. He might play 5. So don't go crazy, I guess.
Yeah, and those 5-game weeks are going to be, I'm pretty sure all of them are Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So it's not like there's like 4 or 5 games in a row where they might need that day off. So it's probably less likely that those players playing 5 games are going to get a day off.
We have a few questions from our Apple Podcast review. This one comes from Austin Frankie. Dear Rogers, Eddie, Knapp, and Joe.
Those are Hall of Fame second basemen.
Apparently, he's second baseman with the highest OPS ever.
Hornsby, Eddie. Oh, which one's that?
Hey, you guys are older than me. You're
Knapp,
supposed to know your
Lajoie,
history.
and Joe Morgan are the other.
Is that how you pronounce it? I thought it was Nap La Joy, but
that actually sounds more right. I've never heard that name said out loud. I've only read it.
Who's the Joe?
Eddie Collins? Is that a thing? He was like a baseball player, right?
He sounds like a baseball player.
It definitely sounds like a baseball player.
10-team Roto Keeper
look it up.
League. I went heavy on pitching and didn't target a second baseman as early as I
not
would have
Eddie.
liked.
Oh, it is Eddie Collins. I thought it is Eddie Collins.
He has one of the 5 highest OPS for a
424?
second baseman.
On base percentage, 424.
It's
OPS.
No, it's OPS. 853. That's
Okay.
yeah, no.
Well, move over.
He's good. Hall of Famer.
Robinson
Eddie
Cano
Cano.
is coming.
Yeah.
2-time MVP.
All right,
One-time
sorry,
MVP.
Frank. Go for it.
This gentleman, Austin, did not target a second baseman as early as he would have liked. His middle infield consists of Ryan McMahon. He has Trey Turner at shortstop. He has Didi Gregorius as his middle infielder, as well as Cesar Hernandez on the bench, so he can swap those guys around. Is this viable in a 10-team keeper league, or should I look to pick someone up on waivers, or possibly move a pitcher? They're playing Roto this year, and then they're moving to head-to-head points. Pitchers are Scherzer, Charlie Morton, Lucas Giolito, Brandon Woodruff, Zach Gallen, Julio Arias, Nick Anderson, Edwin Diaz, Zach Britton.
Look, I mean, none of those guys besides Turner seems like a long-term keeper option anyway. So I'll just say go get Howie Kendrick if he's available. He's not going to have much long-term value, but even in a 10-team league, it's very possible if he hits as well as he did last year playing DH every day, it's entirely possible that he's a top 5 second baseman. I mean, if he hits anywhere close to what he did last year.
Yeah. One thing to remember with Kendrick is he played every single game in the playoffs last year. Like when there was off days for him, when there was opportunities to use the DH, like the Nationals considered him a major part of their lineup. He won NLCS MVP. And now they have the DH and they're missing Rendon. And and Soto. So he's going to play a ton. I that's a good call. There's a good chance Kendrick is available in the 10-team league. I would make that move if you could.
I think Dansby Swanson might be available in a 10-teamer. He's only 42% owned.
I'm going to have to go ahead and disagree with my esteemed colleagues here. I don't think Howie Kendrick is going to be the answer. Now, you could go get him and see how you do. But I think if you want to stand out in a 10-team league at second base, trade one of your pitchers for a stud second baseman because you have pitching depth. But I don't think you have to do that immediately. Sure, go get Kendrick and see what happens.
Yeah. Or McMahon. McMahon had a huge build up to the season and another great performance in the preseason. I don't know if it was spring training and summer camp combined, but he hit like 5 or 6 homers.
Well, he probably played like all of his summer camp at Coors Field. He's so bad on the road.
Well, all in Arizona and Coors Field. He's got a ton of strikeouts. I don't know. Ryan McMahon is someone a lot of people still have hope for. I do not, but he does hit the ball hard.
He's still very early in his career. The data wasn't good last year and what was his first real opportunity. But, drop Cesar Hernandez because he's Scrub City in a 10-team league. Drop him for Kendrick if he's out there.
Well, and especially in Roto. Like I think in head-to-head, you could make a case that he might be, someone you can hang on to in a head-to-head points league. But yeah, Roto, I mean, it's really you're hoping for batting average and runs.
Are you guys done? Are you guys done bashing Cesar Hernandez? The only response I have to that. This next one's from Corey Wisely.
I mean, the way this is going, Cesar Hernandez is going to hit a home run tomorrow.
Of course he is. 5x5 standard categories league and could use a few more stolen bases. Do you guys warrant me dropping Franmil Reyes for Kyle Tucker? I have solid power throughout my lineup.
You've got a worse hitter than Franmil Reyes.
I mean, don't drop Franmil Reyes. My bold prediction, he's going to lead all of baseball in home runs.
Yeah, like I want Kyle Tucker on my team.
Find a way to make it happen, but
but
can't
you gotta
drop
have
Reyes.
someone worse than Franmil.
It's got to be a small league if Kyle Tucker's unowned, right?
I cannot even tell you. I did a Yahoo draft on Wednesday night. It was Kyle Tucker. I didn't even see him because their rankings are so different than ours.
Yeah.
He must have gone in almost the 20th round. I mean, he was so late. His value is super low right now, I think.
Yeah. It
Now's
might
not
also
a bad time to trade for him.
Might have been a league that drafted in March when it wasn't clear he had a role, or when it was starting to look like he didn't, or even, 3 weeks ago, Dusty Baker all but said Josh Reddick was going to be the starter and Kyle Tucker didn't really have a job.
Let's guess his ownership percentage on CBS.
Kyle Tucker?
He's below 60%. He was one of the guys I wrote about. He's 58%.
Oh, geez. Let other people play.
Well, there's the game.
58, yeah.
Yeah, I wrote about Juan Soto replacements earlier today, and he was the top one. So that probably means he's like 4% owned in Yahoo leagues.
Yeah, right, probably.
All right, let's wrap.
Okay.
What do you got, Scott? Anything?
I was just going to say, I still don't think it's completely clear that Kyle Tucker, even with Yordan Alvarez out, is an everyday player. Dusty Baker was talking about putting
Aledmus Diaz.
Yeah, that's the name. Yeah.
Look.
At the very least, I'd worry about it being a platoon between the two. And so that would be reason enough to prioritize Franmil Reyes, regardless of your category needs.
All right, let's get a few rapid fire questions in here. This two-parter from Zach. 10 teams, 6x6 roto with OPS and quality starts added on top of the typical stats. We have an NA spot designation on our rosters. Would you hold on to Nate Pearson or Dylan Carlson with that top spot to start the season? Scott?
Pearson.
Also, I didn't do too hot at second base in my draft. I ended up with Howie Kendrick. Apparently might be pretty good according to Chris. Colton Wong, but have Starling Castro, Tommy La Stella, and Lourdes Gurriel Jr. Must be a Yahoo league because Gurriel has the second base eligibility. How would you rank those 5 second basemen, Chris? Kendrick, Colton Wong, Starling Castro, Tommy La Stella, Lourdes Gurriel Jr.
Kendrick, Gurriel.
Really? Kendrick ahead of Gurriel? Wow.
I guess Colton Wong.
Yes, that's
and
the right
then
answer.
Tommy La Stella and Starling Castro. I really like Tommy La Stella. If what he did he's another guy that if what he did last year was for real, he's going to be he was playing like a top 5 second baseman last season.
I really like Tommy La Stella. I do not think Chris. I think Chris really did not like Tommy La Stella all last year. I remember you arguing vociferously against him.
I was very skeptical, but that was when we were talking about like, is Tommy La Stella a top 10 second baseman rest of the season? Now it's like, does Tommy La Stella deserve to be drafted? Was the question, and I drafted him in, I don't know, maybe all of my leagues.
Last question of the day. This one's from Shane. Dear Nick, Isaiah, and Rugned. Those are Rangers.
Those are Odors.
Isn't Rugned Odor's brother named Rugned?
Yeah.
Or his cousin or
yeah.
something?
Yeah.
It's very weird.
They have a
Please,
different last name.
please pick one pitcher to start in my 10-team points league. Lance Lynn at home versus Colorado, and at San Francisco, Lucas Giolito versus Minnesota, and at Cleveland, Robbie Ray, your future Cy Young winner, at San Diego, and home versus the Dodgers.
You guys are going to call me crazy. I'm going with Lynn.
Lynn.
Yeah, I got to go with Giolito. I was like, I understand Lynn's got great matchups, but you can't draft Giolito in the 3rd round and not start him in a 2-start week. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I
What
jumped
kind
the
of
gun.
pitching staff did this guy have?
Yeah.
That he's deciding between Giolito and Lynn, and Robbie Ray's hanging out there too. That's that's a good situation to be in. But you're going to pick wrong a lot of times. That's just
Lance Lynn is, I think, a must-start pitcher in most circumstances.
yeah.
And he's got, I mean, Colorado's a bad lineup outside of Coors, and San Francisco, again.
All right, I'm saying Giolito. I'm sticking to it.
I'm
And
saying
Cleveland-
Giolito too.
At Cleveland is a sneaky tough matchup. The Indians score a lot of runs at home.
Scott, are you going to tie this bad boy up and say Lance Lynn?
My heart says Giolito. I'm gonna go with Lynn this time. I'm gonna
Yeah,
go with
listen
Lynn.
to your
I've been
brain.
backing Lynn all preseason. So with that disparity in matchups and me thinking they have similar upside, Lynn and Giolito, I'll go with Lynn.
Listen
All
to
right,
me,
well-
your brain.
I hope that helps, Shane. Adam and I say Giolito, and these two schlubs are going to go with Lance Lynn. All right, that'll do it for the weekend. Enjoy, everyone. We have a whole weekend of baseball. Holy, when's the last time we could have said that?
Like 9 months ago.
A really, really long time ago.
Literally 9 months.
For Adam, Scott, and Chris, I am Frank. Thank you all for listening and watching Fantasy Baseball Today on our YouTube channel. We'll talk to you again on Monday. Bye-bye.